All right, you lazy shits. Ever picture a bunch of ripped dudes in togas, chucking spears and trying to impress some god they called Zeus?
I can see it now.
Well, that, my friends, was the OG shit show they called the Olympics.
A simpler time.
But how the hell did we go from that ancient wankfest to the billion-dollar clusterfuck we know and love today? Well, buckle up, buttercups, because we're diving deep into the history of the Summer Olympics, and trust me, it's wilder than a coked-up gymnast at a closing ceremony. Luckily, I've got an actual expert here to help us separate the Olympic bullshit from the gold.
Glad to be here. The Olympics, they really are a fascinating mess, that's for sure.
Okay, so let's cut the crap. We've got togas and temples on one hand and sponsorships and scandals on the other. How the fuck do we get from point A to point Z in this worldwide dick measuring contest?
Well, you're right to point out the stark contrast. See, the ancient Olympics, they were like this giant religious festival for Zeus, with athletes competing for glory and olive wreaths, not million-dollar endorsements.
No shit. So basically a bunch of dudes risking life and limb just to avoid pissing off some sky god. Sounds fucking terrifying, honestly.
Well, it was a different time with different priorities. But fast forward to the late 19th century, and this French dude, Pierre de Coubertin, he decides to revive the games.
Coubertin, huh? What a name.
Yeah, he basically wanted to promote world peace through sport, which, let's be real, is about as effective as a screen door on a submarine.
Yeah, good luck with that one, buddy.
But hey, the guy had a vision, and he created the International Olympic Committee, or IOC for short, to make it happen.
So this Coubertin dude, was he like the original Olympic sugar daddy funding this whole athletic circus?
I mean, he was definitely the driving force behind the first modern Olympics in Athens back in 1896.
Athens, 1896.
Ah.
I'm picturing a couple dozen athletes, probably all Greek, hanging out in some crumbling stadium, competing for a plate of olives and a pat on the ass.
Well, not quite. 245 athletes from 14 nations actually participated. It was considered a huge deal at the time.
14 countries. That's like a
Yeah.
small Tinder date these days.
Remember, this was the first international multi-sport event of this scale. The Big Bang of the modern Olympics, if you will. But, get this, women weren't allowed to compete officially.
Seriously. Some dude in a toga thought sports were too fucking manly for women. What an asshat.
I mean, there was actually this badass woman, Stamata Ravisi, who said, screw that, and ran the marathon course unofficially. Talk about girl power, right?
Hell yeah, sister. Stick it to the man. So even back then, the Olympics were a goddamn shit show.
Well, let's not forget, this was the late 19th century, and attitudes towards women were a bit different. But the Olympics, they started small, and then things got bigger, more countries, more athletes, more drama, more bullshit.
More everything, right?
Yeah.
So when did this whole thing really explode? When did it become the shitstorm it is today?
Well, by 1900, the games were in Paris, and they were a complete mess. Over 1,200 athletes, some events even allowed professionals, which, went against that whole amateur ideal that Coubertin was so obsessed with.
Wait, pros in the Olympics? What the fuck? That's like letting a seasoned chef compete on some amateur bacon show. Talk about ruining the fun.
It was chaotic. The games were tangled up with the World's Fair and stretched over 5 months. 5 months of Olympic shenanigans.
5 months. Jesus Christ. These guys had more stamina than the marathon runners. Okay, so what happened next in this train wreck of athletic history?
Well, in 1904, the games were held in St. Louis, but the Russo-Japanese War kept a lot of athletes away.
War. Always got to fuck things up.
And then the 1908 London Games, this is where we get the standard marathon distance of 26 miles and 385 yards.
Why the fuck is it such a random distance? Did they just pull it out of their asses?
Apparently, it was all thanks to the British royal family. They wanted a good view of the finish line from their cushy box seats, so they had the course extended just for them.
Typical royal bullshit. But hey, at least we got a marathon distance that sounds less like a drunken dare and more like a proper test of human misery. Now let's get to the good stuff. Scandals. I know there's got to be some juicy shit in the Olympic archives. Spill the tea, bitch.
Oh, there's plenty. Where do you even want to begin?
Let's start with a name that even I, with my goldfish-like memory, can remember. Jim Thorpe. Wasn't he some kind of Olympic god?
He was an incredible athlete, that's for sure. Won both the decathlon and pentathlon in 1912. But then some asshat complained that he'd played professional baseball before the Olympics, which back then was a big no-no for these amateur games.
So they stripped him of his medals because he played a different sport. Talk about some petty bullshit.
It was a huge controversy, and it really highlights the hypocrisy surrounding the amateur rules back then. It was all a big facade, really. Thorpe's medals were eventually reinstated decades later, but the damage was done.
Classic Olympics. Build someone up just to tear them down.
So what other kind of fuckery went down in the world of Olympic scandals? Well, things really took a turn when the Soviet Union entered the scene in 1952. They basically brought a bunch of state-sponsored athletes disguised as amateurs, which, as you can imagine, pissed off a lot of people.
Ah, the good old communist loophole, bending the rules like a contortionist.
It changed the game completely. Suddenly, countries were pouring resources into training full-time athletes, and the level of competition went through the roof.
So basically, the Cold War turned the Olympics into an arms race, but with sweat and spandex instead of nukes.
Precisely. The Olympics became a stage for political posturing, with boycotts and propaganda taking center stage.
Speaking of fucked up shit, what about the Munich Massacre in 1972? That was some seriously dark shit.
It was a horrific tragedy. Palestinian terrorists attacked the Israeli team, killing 11 athletes and coaches. It cast a long shadow over the Games, and it reminded everyone that even the Olympics weren't immune to the world's problem.
Yeah, that's heavy stuff. But the games went on, right?
After much debate, they decided to continue. But the atmosphere was, understandably somber. It was a testament to the resilience of the athletes and that so-called Olympic spirit, but it also exposed the vulnerability of the Games.
All right, let's move on to something a little less depressing. What about doping? I'm guessing the Olympics have seen their fair share of chemical enhancement.
Oh, absolutely. Doping scandals are practically an Olympic tradition.
Gotta love tradition.
From Ben Johnson's infamous 100-meter dash in 1988 to countless other cases, the pursuit of victory has often led athletes down a dark and chemically enhanced path.
So basically, the Olympics are just a giant chemistry experiment disguised as a sporting event.
It's a complex issue. There's the pressure to win, the allure of fame and fortune, and the constant evolution of performance-enhancing drugs. It's a battle the IOC is constantly fighting, but it's one that's difficult to win.
It's like a game of whack-a-mole. Every time they catch one doper, another one pops up with a new cocktail of illegal substances.
That's a pretty accurate analogy.
Okay, so we've covered togas, boycotts, terrorism, and enough drugs to knock out a horse. What about the modern-day Olympics? Have they become the mega event we all know? And, let's be honest, sometimes hate.
Absolutely. The Games have evolved into a massive spectacle with billions of dollars in sponsorships, broadcasting rights, and infrastructure. It's a far cry from those humble beginnings in Athens.
Yeah, talk about selling out.
Yeah.
The Olympics are basically a giant advertising campaign with some sports thrown in for entertainment.
There's definitely a lot of truth to that. But let's not forget about the athletes who dedicate their lives to competing at the highest level. They push the boundaries of human performance and inspire millions around the world.
Fair enough. But even with all the amazing athletic feats, it's hard to ignore the controversies surrounding the Olympics. You know, like host cities bribing IOC members, the displacement of local communities, and the environmental impact.
Those are all valid concerns. The Olympics have a dark side, and it's important to acknowledge that. But they also have the power to unite people, to celebrate diversity, and to showcase the best of humanity, at least in theory.
Okay, so we've got this weird paradox. The Olympics are both a symbol of human achievement and a reflection of our flaws. It's like looking in a mirror and seeing both your best and worst qualities.
That's a great way to put it.
All right, folks, that's a wrap for part one of our deep dive into the Olympic Games. We've covered a lot of ground from ancient Greece to the modern-day mega event, but we're just getting started. Make sure to stick around for part two, where we'll dive into some of the most memorable moments and athletes in Olympic history and try to figure out if this whole thing is still relevant in the 21st century.
I'm looking forward to it.
Until then, keep your togas clean and your doping to a minimum. Or don't. Whatever. It's your life.
So, ready to dive back into this cesspool of athletic glory and utter bullshit?
Hell yeah, let's get this party started. Last time, we left off talking about how the Olympics went from some dudes in togas to this giant money-hungry monster. But somewhere in all that mess, there've got to be some athletes who actually made it all worthwhile. You know, the kind of folks who make you want to stand up and salute, even if you're sitting on the toilet.
Oh, absolutely. The Olympics have produced some legendary figures, athletes whose names are synonymous with pushing the limits of human potential.
Okay, give me some names. Who are we talking about here? The kind of athletes even my grandma, who thinks a marathon is walking to the fridge, would recognize.
Well, first up, you've got Michael Phelps, the undisputed king of the pool.
Oh yeah, the dude with more gold medals than a rapper's teeth. Seriously, how many did he rack up? Like a bajillion.
He won a record-breaking 28 Olympic medals, 23 of them gold. His dominance in swimming is just insane. He completely redefined what's possible in the sport.
Imagine being that good at something. I can barely keep my head above water in the bathtub.
It wasn't just luck or natural talent. Phelps was known for his insane dedication and work ethic. But there's another side to the story, too. Phelps was also one of the first major athletes to openly discuss his struggles with mental health.
It's about damn time athletes started being real about that shit. It's a reminder that even these Olympic gods, they're human beings too.
Exactly. Now, let's switch lanes from the pool to the track. That's where we find another legend. Usain Bolt, the fastest man alive.
Yes. The lightning bolt himself.
Hmm.
The dude who makes running look like a casual stroll in the park.
His charisma and speed, it was captivating to watch. He holds the world records for both the 100-meter and 200-meter sprints, and he made it look so effortless.
Effortless. The only time I move that fast is when I'm trying to escape a parking ticket.
Bolt's impact went way beyond athletics. He became a global icon, inspiring people with his speed, his showmanship, and that infectious smile.
He's the kind of athlete that makes you think, maybe I should get off the couch and, maybe not run that fast, but at least try a light jog.
He definitely had that effect on people. Now let's talk about a more recent Olympics, one that everyone remembers for a very different reason. Tokyo 2020, the pandemic games.
Oh, yeah. The Olympics where the only cheers came from cardboard cutouts in the stands. Talk about a buzzkill.
It was an unprecedented challenge holding the games during a global pandemic. The athletes and organizers had to deal with postponements, strict protocols, and the constant fear of COVID-19.
It must have been surreal for the athletes competing in empty stadiums. All that energy and excitement just sucked right out of the air.
It was a unique and challenging experience for sure. But despite all the obstacles, the athletes persevered and delivered some incredible performances.
It's a good reminder that even in the face of a global shit show, humans can still find a way to kick ass.
Absolutely. Now, there's another athlete who made headlines in Tokyo, but for a very different reason. Simone Biles, the most decorated American gymnast of all time, made the difficult decision to withdraw from several events.
Yeah, I remember that. Caused quite a stir. Some people called her a quitter, but I thought it was a badass move, putting her mental health first.
It was a watershed moment. Biles chose her well-being over medals, and in doing so, she sent a powerful message. It's okay to not be okay, even when the entire world is watching.
It takes serious guts to step back from that kind of pressure, especially when you're expected to win gold.
Biles' decision sparked a conversation about mental health in sports, a conversation that was long overdue, and not just for Olympians, but for athletes at all levels.
It's a reminder that these athletes, they're not robots. They're human beings with feelings and struggles, and they deserve our support, not judgment.
Couldn't have said better myself.
So we got these legends like Phelps and Bolt, then the weirdness of the pandemic games, and Simone Biles taking a stand for mental health. What else is going on with the modern Olympics? Have they changed at all, or are they still the same old corporate shit show?
Well, despite all the challenges, the Olympics are trying to evolve. They've added new sports like skateboarding, surfing, and sport climbing, trying to attract a younger audience.
About damn time. It's like they finally realized watching synchronized swimming is about as exciting as watching paint dry. Who wouldn't rather see someone shred a half-pipe?
The IOC, they're trying to stay relevant and appeal to a wider demographic, but let's be real, the Olympics are still a massive commercial enterprise with all the baggage that comes with it.
Yeah, we're talking corruption, environmental concerns, and that whole host city bidding process that seems more rigged than a carnival game.
Those issues aren't going away anytime soon. But even with all the flaws, the Olympics still hold a special place in the hearts of many people. They offer a glimpse of human potential, a celebration of athleticism, and a chance for countries to come together, at least for a few weeks.
It's like a giant dysfunctional family reunion. You might fight and bicker, but you still show up for the photo op.
That's a pretty accurate analogy.
So what does the future hold for the Olympics? Will they continue to be this weird mix of athleticism and commercialism? Or will they fade into obscurity? Are they even relevant in the 21st century?
That's the million-dollar question. Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure. The Olympics will always be a reflection of our times, for better or worse.
Okay, you beautiful bastards, welcome back for the final round of our Olympic beatdown. We've laughed, we've cried, we've probably lost a few brain cells along the way. But now it's time to answer the million-dollar question. Are the Olympics still relevant in this crazy-ass world? Or are they just a giant, expensive relic of the past?
Well, it's a question that's been debated for years, especially as the games have become more commercialized and politically charged.
Yeah, the Olympics are like that aging rock star, still trying to sell out stadiums, but mostly relying on their greatest hits instead of writing new material.
I mean, that's one way to put it, but there's no denying the cultural impact and historical significance of the Olympics. They've given us incredible athletic achievements, unforgettable moments, and stories that inspire us.
Sure, we've got our Phelps, our Bolts, our Biles, but is that enough to justify the billions of dollars, the corruption, the environmental impact? It's like throwing a giant party for the whole world and leaving the planet with a massive hangover.
Yeah, the cost and scale of the Olympics are definitely major concerns, but let's not forget about the potential benefits. Hosting the games can boost tourism, create jobs, and improve infrastructure.
Yeah, but those benefits often come with a hefty price tag. And who really profits? The local communities or the big corporations and corrupt officials? It's like a parasite feeding off the host city.
You're raising valid points. The Olympics can be exploitative, and there's a long history of host cities being left with debt and unused infrastructure. It's crucial to hold the IOC accountable and demand more transparency and sustainability from them.
Transparency from the IOC. That's like asking a politician to tell the truth. It ain't gonna happen.
You're not wrong, but that doesn't mean we should just give up on the Olympics entirely. There's still potential for reform, for a more equitable and sustainable model that prioritizes athletes and communities over profits and politics.
So what, we're supposed to just sit back and hope that the IOC suddenly grows a conscience? That's about as likely as me winning a gold medal in synchronized swimming.
It's not about blind faith, it's about demand and change. We need to hold the IOC and host cities accountable, push for stricter regulations, and support athletes who speak out against injustice and corruption.
Sounds like a lot of work for a sporting event. Maybe we'd be better off just watching cat videos on the internet.
It's easy to be cynical, but the Olympics represent something more than just sports. They're a symbol of human ambition, perseverance, and the pursuit of excellence.
All right, I'll give you that. There's something undeniably magical about watching these athletes push their limits, defying the odds, and inspiring the world.
And let's not forget the power of the Olympics to unite people from different cultures and backgrounds, even if it's just for a fleeting moment.
Yeah, in a world that's increasingly divided, that's a pretty powerful thing.
So are the Olympics still relevant? It's a complicated question with no easy answers. But as long as there are athletes striving for greatness, stories that move us, and a desire for connection, the Olympic spirit, however flawed, will probably endure.
Well said. All right, folks, that's it for our deep dive into the wild world of the Olympic Games. We've covered everything from togas and terrorists to doping and mental health. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. One thing's for sure. The Olympics are a reflection of who we are, flaws and all.
Thanks for having me on the show. It's been, interesting.
And thank you, you magnificent bastards, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Olympics, let us know. Give us a shout on social media, leave a review, or just tell your grandma about it. And if you're feeling inspired, maybe go for a run, lift some weights, or just chase a squirrel around the park. Just remember, no doping allowed.
And always prioritize your mental health.
Damn right. Now go out there and be your best selves, you beautiful creatures. Until next time, peace out.